October 3rd, 2021. I want to thank whoever came out to IHOP this morning, being the Pancake House, IHOP. My son Daniel, it's his first return home from his first year of college as a freshman, wherever he's attending for DVM. That's a doctor of veterinary medicine. He's finally been able to touch a horse. They finally, my level of human that I appreciate, is able to assess that this poor child has never had, because I had to stay catfish in this debris field up here, with earth being here and everybody wants gold in between. And Benjamin's birth created this exact signature Ort'B field, which caused me ginormous amounts of problems. So I finally got my hands on Daniel, which is, I mean, even though they're not supposed to be, they're still mine. And they're still raised the way that I wanted them raised. Which is very limited human interaction. So I said to Daniel, so Daniel, how's campus life? I was like, are you staying pretty catfish? And he goes, yeah. And he's like, I go to class. He goes, but then I go back to my room. I was like, perfect. Just like I raised you. I was like, I just want to make sure, campus life is important. I was like, but I need you to stay, whatever. So, that happened. He told me that he osculates. I took human medicine. It's the same word. And then he said alphabet soup, TPR. I asked him what that was. It's temperature, pulse, and respirations, I think. Again, it's been a while since I went to actual human medicine in clinical trials of, observing in voyeurism what they're up to in that setting at Mercy Hospital, but whatever. So, this is deep cover. I don't know what else to tell you. So now, not that I wanted it to be this way, it's just what's been painted into my inability to negotiate out of the debris field, no matter how hard I try. So, today, there was a U.S. Postal representative, and there was a Sanitation union representative. So thank you both for bringing your families and observing my family from your family, and for introducing to one another who you were, since you two knew whatever, and whatever, and I have no idea. So as I sat there with Lewis and Linda at the ass end, or the head end of one side of the table, Benjamin and I across from each other, and then Cat Scratch and Daniel in the middle, I tried to show Benjamin the fresco painting that I put up on social media that my grandfather was into. I tried to explain to Benjamin the GRE, and with the GRE, GRE with the CIA, but my son's not really getting it, because he has a problem within the Ort'B cloud of thinking that his, legions should be pledged somehow to Jason, which it's not. Both grandfathers are pieces of shit, meaning Lewis and Peter, and Jason is just as bad, as far as I'm concerned. If you poison my son's ear to my being a saint because you fucking raped me and pulled me into this and caused this fucking Ort'B cloud, then you are a piece of shit. So I sat at the table with my children, Jason dead to us, and I just stayed on task to the most important, which is protecting their future. I showed and explained to Benjamin about NASA, the space agency, and their allowance of Ort'B cloud, debris field, and the AU, which is how they metrically measure the space between the debris field and Earth. And I said, you've heard of the debris field, right? Out in the solar system, there's Kepler debris field of some sort. They're not sure what broke up. I said, just so you know. So now I'm head coach in the Romer Tiafrio Oort field of debris and gold that I have no control over whatsoever. But I was the cause of it because I brought these children into the world in my way of explaining the expanse of space and time and global expansionism. But I was part of a previous operation that went sour, and I'm under something called an avalanche. I'm supposed to have a blanket exemption. So now, and thank you to U.S. Postal for reminding me of that word, because U.S. Postal, is apparently exempt and told Sanitation that in front of my whatever, within my earshot. I, while sitting with my son, reminded my son that I gave birth to, Benjamin, my first son, from 1999, in earshot of both of these wonderful gentlemen, who one serves the Sanitation Union, one serves the U.S. Postal Union, and their families, which I did not stare at, so do not ask me for what they look like. I just saw the face of the U.S. Postal worker, kind of, sort of, but even in a lineup, I probably couldn't, whatever. It's like a Kronk, Kronk kind of a thing, but not in when he opens his mouth. It's not. It's just, that would be in the alpacas that bite your ear off when you're not looking in the Andes Mountains, and the llamas somewhere else, whatever. There's a fight going on. So I said in front of both of them, I said, Benjamin, I said, remind me, in this country, when we have Thanksgiving, what does Mom serve? And he said, turkey. I said, exactly. I said, so Benjamin, in this country, we'll call it America at the moment, I was like, you have this American football. What does the football look like, Benjamin? And he goes, what do you mean? Football's a football. I'm like, the football looks like a roast beef, Benjamin. And he goes, I go, it's the color of a cooked roast beef with a different shape or paradigm or dimension carved out of a roast beef. He's like, okay. And then all of a sudden, downwind of the table, Lewis pipes up. What are you getting at, Nicole? What does that mean? And I'm like, what it means, Lewis, I was like, is that in Europe and in Latin America or South America, they have something called a football, but the ball itself looks very different. It's a soccer ball in American speech. But if you're in international waters, wars, crimes, and good people get killed over stupid details when you don't make a distinction in certain circles. I was like, so Latin football is a round circle ball and different than an American football. And a European football looks different. And even the word soccer ball looks different than what they actually play with. And I'm not a sports aficionado, but that is a U.S. Postal Service distinction of importance to keep people alive. And Lewis is like, where do you come up with this? I go, I don't know, Lewis. Some of us take our job a little bit more seriously than others. So then I said to my son, I said, you know, Benjamin, that's a digital watch. I said, your watch on your wrist should be ticking. It should have tick, 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 tick for timing technique. That digital watch is a major problem with what's going on for me right now with this Oort cloud. And I showed my son the Oort cloud. I said, there are a lot of blind spots for me in the debris field and in the gold metric that they measure in. That's where I am in danger. I then explained to my son, Benjamin, about my knee. My son, Benjamin, it feels, when I speak to him, he couldn't give two shits less. He's not Alexander. Alexander will actually give me the time of day. Alexander will lend me his ear. Benjamin's like Mr. like hot shot, like too good for everybody, doesn't want to fucking hear it. Until it's too late. Unless punishment is on the table. He didn't want to fucking get involved. Well, how fucking convenient for you, son. So now, I explained to him about his heritage artwork fresco on the way in. Alexander conveniently went off with some rich dad, which was really nice. So thank you for taking him and involving him in something that's upper echelon. But Alexander went at 5 a.m. in the morning to some great adventure, and he's working somewhere different today with social prowess. I'm working coaching mom from the enemy's field, and I had onlooker U.S. Postal Service and Union Sanitation, so thank you both for your service. There's a difference. I'm not asking you to serve me directly, but this is a two-way street, and your unions need updates, and I need help because I'm being victimized in the field, and it gets a little confusing when your agendas have been conflicting, and now all of a sudden you have to reprioritize, and you're like, well, what's in it for me, and what am I on the hook for? Not questions when I'm this color and you're the same color, that I want you Indian chiefs at, I can't really reach you on a normal basis, to like hold me down for. So I explained that to my son Benjamin as a conduit of witness protection for myself against his generation, since I'm sandwiched between Louis the moron and my son Benjamin. So now I also had a little tiff, we'll call it, with the radio station that was dialing into Louis's transponder in the medullary cavity of the medulla oblongata and the pons and the pineal gland, and which way they were directing the conversation from satellite company something else in franchise, since all of these words seem to be a little articulated the wrong way. So now there's a big fight over some game of soccer. So I even said to Benjamin, I was like, so Ben, I was like, let me get this straight. Lindis brings up, oh my god, like something's really big about football. And I'm like, yeah, boys? Because they're my go-to. And so I'm like, I heard that I saw on the TV, they mention of Tom Brady, which I didn't know Tom Brady existed until you mentioned that he and I share the same birthday, son, being Benjamin. I was like, but I saw that they had some kind of like big river, like boat thing, and it was like big things, like for him coming back, like homecoming. I was like, I made a mention of it during the week on Overlay Parlay on my end. I was like, since I never even heard of such a thing. And Ben's like, and I'm like, let's go through this. Let's walk through this together from my perspective, Benjamin. I was like, I was your mother for your entire life until whatever happened. I was like, and did you ever see me put football on TV? Ever? He goes, no. I go, exactly. So there was no exposure on my part. I don't know the rules of the game. I don't know the players. I haven't been following it. I don't do bookie and stats. I was like, I don't even do lingo and linguistics for the most part. I was like, and there was rare, like half a hand of times where you actually spent the Super Bowl with me. I was like, and I put it on the TV. I wasn't really present for it. I was like, I let you have friends over, and we did the American thing with, I ordered a pizza, and there was some soda involved, because that's what, and buffalo wings, because that's what the Americans do with their roast beef football on a Super Bowl Sunday. If I get my 4 boys or 3 boys together in the same living room, even when they were younger. One time, I put a little mom in there. I did apple cider champagne for them. Like it was like the bubbly apple cider, and I put in champagne glasses, and I made a big thing because like they had friends over, and I was like, well, I don't really get. I mean, this is like a celebratory like Super Bowl. I have no clue who was playing, but whatever on that one. And so I said to him, I was like, so there, and apparently there's some wild, Daniel tells me this is the vocabulary, wild card today for playoff. No idea what that's involved in. I'm like, okay, got it. Key operative words. There's 2 4-letter words. It's wild and card. Got it. Okay, that's important. Thanks, Dan, for your contribution. I was like, and so I was like, so I know a Super Bowl happens once a year. I know it's really important to the Americans. I know it's really important to my boys. I don't know why. It seems to be some kind of DNA encoding in why is the helix curved? Why is my double helix now all of a sudden bent into a spirituette, which is a double helix on a bend, like as if you took a perfect ladder and you just started to twist it into where it doesn't belong? That's what the DNA has done in this human arrangement since Ort'B and whatnot has been in the wrong programming as far as I'm concerned, at my level. So now, how does deep cover happen? It happens by there was some kind of U.S. Postal Service and U.S. Service avalanche that happened in some mountain house resort in quiet, nobody fucking knows. And then all of a sudden the snow came over my mountain house and I'm buried deep inside as a catfish. I can't see out the windows. There's very little. The snow melted a little bit. I got a little sunshine coming in. They call it a television. So that's how that happens on communicative. Then I asked Benjamin, I said, you worked at Modell's. I was like, I'm just curious. Like, do they do, like, retail inspections of counterfeit? I was like, because I know, like, U.S. Port Authority, or the Port Authority and the U.S. Postal Service, they're supposed to be working together to, like, keep the real merchandise and franchise merchandise correct and not allow counterfeits into the country or onto the shelves. I was like, but they have to do not only port inspections, they're supposed to be retail location inspections. Because Benjamin was working at Modell's, which was the red shirt spelled Modells. That's God in hell. Right, yeah, still same Ortfield. And so he got fired, and now it changed to blue and white, and it's called Five Below. Now, I'm curious, is that like under the table, your palm, you put 5 out and you want cash? Is that like the counterfeit kids? Because I hear they're really discount clothing, like not really like good style clothing, but it's what the ghetto can afford these days. I had a contact named Hillcrest. I named him Hillcrest. But his real name is Gerard. I don't know, it has a weird saying. Jarrod, but I called him Hillcrest just because I needed him to have distinction with, I just really appreciated who he was as an individual and his individual constitution. What he does outside and what radio station he tunes into, I have no idea. No way of knowing. So now, I'm star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. I did let my son, my oldest son, I used to call him the little daddy, know about what my physicality. And he's like, you should go to the doctor. I go, Benjamin, I just described for you what you have a future doctor of veterinary medicine next to you. I was like, I just described for you the entire apparatus of a human knee. And that it no longer looks knobby, Knobby, in my knee area. It is so swollen around it by whatever. It's a radiological effect, which Lewis wanted to have. As soon as I said that, Lewis was like, ah! Like his radio station went fucking, his stereo system went like on the haywire, on the fritz is what I call it, but whatever. So now, I have to think about this. So, oh, and while we were talking about oscillating with stethoscope, with Daniel and the horse, Lou says, "Hey Dan," he goes, "how do you know if the horse's lungs are clear or not?" And Daniel's like, "I don't know, I haven't learned it." I was like, I know the answer. Can I teach you that one, Dan? And I was like, "I know from the human." I was like, "But it should be the same for the horse." And he goes, "Yeah, Mom, go ahead." And I was like, "Well, when you're listening, when the airflow goes in, inhale, exhale, and it just is an even flow and there's not much to it, you just hear the air moving, that usually is indicative of the horse's lungs are in good working condition. Not always, but for the most part." I was like, where it comes in is when you find an obstruction in that airflow, when you hear the obstruction of breathing, it sometimes sounds like a Rice Krispie treat, like a crackle. That is more indicative of there's something inside the lung tissue or inside the movement that's preventing the air from doing its actual necessity. I was like, of like aerating. I was like, and sometimes that's indicative of phlegm starting to accumulate or a host of other things. But I don't know the horse's version of what they call it. And he was like, "Oh." I said, "Well, that makes sense." And I was like, "It does make sense, doesn't it?" So that happened. So that is where I was at. So I had present at today's meeting was Benjamin Jason Romer, 1999, Daniel Lee Romer, 2003, Anthony Tiafrio, 2012. So I have from Generation Y, Gamma. I'm Generation X, which is War. I also explained to Benjamin, I said, here's the thing. There's an ancient Egyptian goddess named Nut, N-U-T, if we're speaking flat English. But in ancient Denmark, it was Nut, N-U-T, but it was with a C in front of it. So C Nut, right? C Nut. I was like, and then in French, the word for night is nuit, N-U-I-T. I was like, I would be the goddess of the night sky. They have her arched over, holding up the night sky with her bodice. So this way, the earth and the sky dome doesn't collapse in on the humans. That's what she's attributed for. I said, that's who I am, Benjamin. I was like, that goes back to je suis being there. If you put an I in it, if you put an I in it, it's je suis. If you take the I out, it's Jesus. Just so you're aware, when you're serving turkey and there's a fight over an American roast beef looking football and there's a European football and then there's a Latin football and they fight over like scary stuff, like I'll slit your throat, you want to take away my football. Uh-huh. Right, yeah, that's how their sportsmanship works. It's scary Mayan calendar babies. Uh-huh. That goes back to, there was a fireman's calendar at one point. Uh-huh. Yeah, well, I think the Mayans opened up their own and an Azteca and Inca and tribal scary shop, and they wanted, and then they got confused about counterfeit and copycat and who's who and what's what, and then they had more kids and they kept evolving, and now we're in a really scary century of 20. It's still, I fell out of a foxhole in century 19, but Alexander James fell out same lineage of foxhole in a century 20. So we're still at, he's year 5. Here we are. And then my Benjamin and Daniel are caught in between the rubble and the ruckus. Between millennial baby, Mayan calendar baby, and then there's a subset, an overture system of Generation X, Generation Y, and Generation Z. And that's for timing technique to explain to some of the humans, not all of them, but the ones that keep us safe. at unionized something or other. You need one set at union boss level to get out to all your workers to make sure that your telephone communications and your set of instructions are correct. You need one anchor point in actuality with one face. And then down through the ranks and the chain of command, there might be slight movement, but it's easier to correct a slight movement once everybody knows who in line are those anchor points that they can reach out to in some form of large-scale communication project with a lot of moving parts, which is what a nation actually is and what the United States actually is, what global is, and then at global expansion, which is the dilation of time and space, since space and time never technically stop on any one key area point that the humans at this level are aware of. And so therefore, since they can't anchor and stake one meeting, if you're just a regular person, time just keeps cycling day after day after day in a moving dilation project. They have to have some way of grappling with what's going on around them and when the machine turns on and off, so they don't scare themselves and so they still have motivation to work towards the one purpose that still needs to be sought after. And my part, I'm just trying to come up with enough human language, and this is the national anthos or anthem flag that they've used since I've been here. It's what they've presented. Ugh. While this was created, they came up at some point with this, most likely with, in the U.S. Postal Service, whatever pieces are involved in this debris field and ongoing investigation. So anyway, so I actually got to see my sons. It was really, really nice for once. I don't get to talk to them on the phone. Because I don't like to do digital anything. Although Jason also has my phone blocked from my children. So even though I send the text message updates to my children of what I have going on in research and communication of what they should be knowing, I'm reliant on a third party of somewhere respectable to bring them the actual news of what I'm saying and how they can follow, because they're part of something that is incredibly dangerous, but it's also incredibly crucial in order to fix. So I'm in Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. It's Earth, it's solar system, it's Milky Way, it's universe. The galaxy is broken at the moment. And it's October 3rd, 2021. And I dressed for breakfast in my whatever, because I am just not branded per se. And I wanted to stay where I was somewhat recognizable for union, because I don't know what level of union they're at. But I know that they're incredibly important since they introduced themselves to each other, not just beyond my table, but so I could overhear. So thank you for showing up today. I appreciate that. Again, Nicole Cattaruzza, star 1978, star 8378.